What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 116 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And of course, be sure to join the Discord channel. I'll have a link in the description below. Right now I have a poll going on for my next ship build, so make sure that once you join the Discord, you click on the new build poll. It'll be on the left side, and I have accumulated that list based off of my top requests on YouTube. So definitely check that out. And of course, if you can help me out and share my channel, share this video with your friends or on any social media, that would be awesome. I've got my goal right now of trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Once I do, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the U.S.S. Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond. So I'm really looking forward to that. But without further ado, let's actually go ahead and jump right into today's episode. We're going to be picking up where we left off on Monday's episode, and we're going to be going back and working on our engineering areas. So you can see we're looking pretty good so far. Now this middle strip right here, this is actually going to be a backbone for one of our corridors. Or not for one of our corridors, for our turbo lifts. And this is what I was telling you guys about, that we're going to be adding in secondary turbo lifts on the lower hull. This is exactly where they're going to go on the left and right side of main engineering. Let's get some sea lanterns just to brighten things up just a little bit. Now I will say on that front side there, these are actually going to be the wall that I'm building here, I'm actually going to take that away and have it to where you can come out on the other end. But I wasn't sure I was going to do that at this point. I think I was planning on having it come down a deck and then being able to go to the back. But I want to try to keep things organized as much as I can. So I think it's either in today's episode or Friday's episode that we're going to be deleting that walkway that's directly behind us right now. But we'll actually be adding that back. Because again, I want to keep everything on that one deck that we can walk through all the way to the back of the ship and hit all those turbo lifts. But this will make things very convenient for us because this turbo lift is going to help take us into the deflector control room, and it will also help us be able to get into some of the lower areas on the lower hull that we haven't even worked on yet. I will say that out of all the areas on my Enterprise D, this is probably the one that I have the most area that I haven't filled in yet. But, based off of the between the saucer and lower hull. But once we add in the deflector dish, because you're probably thinking like, oh, there's a million things to do, but there's really not going to be that much, because the deflector dish, the control room, is actually going to be taking a good chunk of the forward section of the lower hull. And you'll see what I mean once we get that fleshed out, because I really, I've talked about this, that with having this scale of a ship to work with, I've been able to do a lot of things that I haven't been able to do on some of my other builds, which has actually been really awesome, because it's allowed me to have a lot more fun with this build, and I've been able to build out a lot more rooms on a larger scale, and it's helped me in not only fleshing out more of the ship, but making it feel more like a Galaxy class ship. Because that was like the one, like if we could improve upon the Enterprise D from Next Generation, not like it would need it, I think the one thing that it was missing was that for a ship that size, all the rooms were relatively tiny, and you can, of course, you chalk that up to the what the reason for that was is that the budget. They didn't have the money to build out a lot of the stuff that not only they conceptualized, but the areas that they did conceptualize, but they just didn't have the budget to build these things out. So that's going to be one of the main things I'm going to have the most fun with on this build, is having some of those large scale areas um, on this ship, because once we're going through this, it's going to feel like a pretty massive ship. So we're looking pretty good right there. We're just going to wrap up these two walls that we have on the left and right side, and our pretty much our template for our turbo lifts on each side will be done. I'm not going to lie, I'm still actually trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do on the very back end of the lower hull. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been trying, because I talk about this on the channel and also on Discord. I've been watching a lot of TNG lately. I actually have made it almost like a nightly ritual. Every night before I go to bed, I'll watch an episode of TNG. And I really pay attention to the episodes, not only because I enjoy it, but because I'll try to spot out some new areas that I didn't remember before from in the show that I can add into this build. And I mean, that's been the most fun with this too, because I mean, I really do feel that when this ship is done, I'm not going to say that I'm going to have a perfect Enterprise D, but I will say that I'm going to have one of the most fleshed out Enterprise Ds that you can possibly find, because I've added some things in on this ship that I haven't seen anybody else do, you know. Even like one of my main reference material sources that I got for this build was the 3D Tour and Unreal engine that you can find on YouTube. And even watching that tour, like some of the rooms that were on Next Generation, they weren't on that tour. So I think that'll be pretty cool. So like diehard fans of TNG, I think are really going to appreciate this build when it's done, because it's just going to be without a doubt just filled with Easter eggs from the show, and more so than any of my other builds that I've done in the past. Because like even like when I did the second most fleshed out ship at this point that I've done would probably be my Enterprise A. But even the Enterprise A, there's probably like maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 rooms that I didn't include that were in the original series I just forgot about. And I'm sure that'll be the case with the Enterprise D, but the Enterprise D is going to have a lot more, you know? So now, getting back a little bit what we got going on here, we're going back into our turbo lifts that we're adding, and we're going to start to deck out each of the decks that will be connected to the turbo lift. And I don't know for certain that all these will end up being decks. They don't necessarily have to be, but I'm at least going to build out the doorways for them, because one of the things I like to do when I build my turbo lifts is that it's important to have each deck at least the doorways built out, because as you're going deck to deck, this is going to be one of the things that's going to help us in making the ship feel larger than it is. Now, with that being said, I'm still going to do as much as I can. We'll see. Like I said, this back end area, this is the one area of the ship that I've done the least amount of work on, simply because of the fact that I haven't fully figured out what I want to do with it just yet. I've pretty much have done what I want to do with engineering. I ended up extending engineering out into the neck, but I'm almost thinking that maybe that's probably what I should do, is that to continue to flesh out engineering into the lower hull, and maybe have like areas for like water and things like that. That might end up being a thing. I'm really not sure at this point, but that's kind of what I've been leaning towards, because I'm not quite sure what else I can do for that area of the ship. Of course, I can do another torpedo room, because the Enterprise D had an additional torpedo room on the back end of the lower hull, but that's not really going to take up that much room, you know. But you know, these are the things that I like to think about when I'm working on these builds, because when your brain uh, starts working and thinking about these areas, I promise you, like, stop and think about this stuff, because this is going to ultimately be the bread and butter of your interior of your ship. And of course, we've got this challenge right now of working with a ship on this scale of fleshing out all of this. Now, ultimately, there's just going to be no way around it, that there's going to be some dead space areas. I'm not one of those builders that I want to be constrained by the shape that I have to work with. I try to do a nice marriage between the two. But with that being said, I also won't fill in dead space areas if um, just because they're there. You know, if anything, like if I've completely worked on an area of the ship and there's some dead space here and there, at that point I'll just close it off, because you'll never know that it's there otherwise, unless you got rid of the wall. So to me, it's just not really that big of a deal. But I also look at it as, well, maybe there's some people that might want to fill in those areas, and at that point you've got extra room on your ships that you can do just that. All right, so we're looking pretty good. We've got our facade decks in place for determining how many decks it's actually going to go down to on here. I know for certain I'll have one deck down here in the belly of the ship. What I'm actually been toying with doing, to be completely honest with you, is that this middle, because I'm working on two walkways. You're going to see me put that one down on the right, and now we're going to do the one on the left. In between that, between the warp core and this back turbo lift that we have right here, I'm honestly considering having a nice big open area. I'm not quite sure on what I want to do back there, but that might end up actually being a thing. And because of that, I'm actually leaning towards that. We're going to actually flesh out the backside of our engineering where the warp core is coming down. We're going to close that in so you're not seeing this little piece sitting here anymore. Because I think it was at this point in the episode or the tutorial that I was thinking, like, well, maybe I'll just make that an open space in the middle and have like another grandiose area. And if anybody's wondering on my placement and how far I'm coming back of these, I'm stopping just one back from the backbone of the turbo lift. So you don't want it to be flush, but I'm stopping just one block before it. Alright, we're looking pretty good so far. I think here in just a moment I'm going to be deleting this walkway, because we're going to be working on this back area here. And like I was telling you guys before, we're going to be adding this back, because on this, where I have this walkway right now, it's the same level as our main engineering deck. And where I was telling you guys we're going to be making that U shape, so we will be adding this back on. So if you don't necessarily want to delete that, you don't have to, but you may actually want to delete a few rows off of it, only because we're going to be working with this back area right here specifically, and adding some layers to it, because I want to close up some of this area back here, especially particularly the warp core itself. Because when I'm coming into this section of the ship, I just decide, like, I don't necessarily want to be able to see it. We need to get some lighting in here. Yeah, again, when we're working on these ships, it's just literally one giant jigsaw puzzle, and it's just a matter of coming up with the ideas that you want to incorporate in your build and figuring out a way that you're gonna be able to make it work based on what you have to work with. So this white terracotta, we're gonna be getting rid of that in favor of white concrete. Because again, we want to make sure that our patterns are staying consistent throughout this build. If you're not necessarily worried about it, you don't have to. But for me, anyway, that's something that's very important because when you're, if there's no strip of white terracotta in your on your turbo lifts, but then one of the turbo lifts you go into and it's there, it's gonna be something that's basically gonna stand out. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons why I try to stick with my patterns as much as I possibly can. Through and through. So this way, as you're going through the ship, there's consistency. I think the easier thing to do here is to start from the bottom and work my way up. Alright. So if we got one ladder in place, then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top. You can look down, you can look up as you're going upward, but I kind of just found at this point where as I was going, it was just easier to look down. Yeah, and that wall, that top wall that on the first deck of our corridor on the lower, or excuse me, on the turbo lift, the lower hull, like I was saying, we're actually be taking that back wall off, so this way we can get to the backside there. But we'll cross that bridge here in just a little while. I'm going to get some more sea lanterns in place just to light this up just a little bit more. Those two gray, darker gray strips on either side, we're going to have to swap those out as well. So remember, we want to stay as consistent as possible. And look, here's the other thing too, like, I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't stuff that's necessarily vital, but when I'm doing my builds, I try my hardest to make sure that I stay consistent as much as I can. Now, there are times from time to time that I'll even make mistakes, and I've had people point them out. Sometimes people will do it maybe not the most respectful way possible, and they'll almost do it like coming off like I'm trying to present myself as like the perfect builder in the world. And like that honestly couldn't be further far from the truth. As well, like I said, everybody's going to make mistakes. We're all human. Anybody that says that they don't make mistakes on these when they're working on stuff, to be honest, I'm sorry, they're full of crap. And I mean, at the end of the day, just mistakes are going to happen, you know. But this is why I have a lot of my rules in place that I do to try to avoid those mistakes as much as possible. You know what I mean? But with that being said, it's not even that much of a big of a deal. When these mistakes happen, you know, this is why I just try to be very observant of my ships as I'm going through them and look at the details to make sure that everything matches up. And if there is a mistake, yeah, I'll go back and I'll fix it. But it's really not that big of a deal. We actually need to close off the top point of this corridor, or the roof I should say, not necessarily top point. See, I was checking out the roof at that angle. So again, I want to try to make things match up as much as I possibly can. And there's nothing wrong with going back and doing a quick refresher to see what you did. As you guys can see, as I go through this tutorial, I do it all the time because especially when you're working on a ship this scale, it can become very easy to forget what you did. So this is again one of the reasons why while I'm doing stuff, if it's going to be supposed to be the same on both sides, this is the reason why I go back and I do that immediately, because even then, like, you can make a mistake, it can happen, you know. Alright, so this is easy enough. We're going to do a row of white concrete, and then 2 darker gray blocks coming straight out, and then 2 sea lanterns coming straight out. And then a row of white terracotta up top, and then on the sides, and then at the bottom. We're just about done with this area of the ship with these corridors, and that's looking pretty sharp. We'll say it's not perfect. Like I said, I'm still like considering whether I want to flatten off that wall there on the right, because it's messing with me that it's going at an angle and it's not necessarily flushing with the rest of the ship. So, I mean, don't be surprised if I do come back and end up doing that, because every time I walk through there, that just it sticks out to me and kind of just messes with me a little bit. We're looking pretty good. We shot through 21 minutes. I thought we were going to end up getting done more today, but I think what happened there is that as I went through and I watched this week's set of episodes, um, that'll be coming up in one of the future episodes this week. So I promise you all the stuff that I was talking about, working on this area specifically, we are going to do that this week. I just kind of merged the 2 episodes together on mistake. But yeah, we'll get into that stuff. We got a little bit of work done today. Again, just mostly um, a prep work episode and getting done our corridors as well as our turbo lifts. So this way we can start to work on some of the other areas on this section of the ship, and also the deflector dish. That's going to be something else that we're going to be doing this week, starting off the deflector dish. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up today. And I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And of course, if you have any questions regarding today's episode, be sure to drop a comment below. Or if you're just dropping by to say hey, definitely love hearing from everybody, and I'll help you out if I can. Um, and yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. And so I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know on Discord.